In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the input speed sensor on the transmission of this Hyundai Sonata. Located below the battery and the air filter box, let's get started. Let's disconnect the negative battery terminal, which is the one that's closest to the driver's side fender. Use a 10mm wrench or socket and loosen this mounting nut up. You don't have to remove it, you just have to loosen it just enough so you can move this terminal around, pull it right up and off of the battery. This one has some corrosion on it that I'm going to clean off. The post on the battery looks okay, so I'm going to set this aside, but always inspect your connections. On the other side of the battery, we have the positive terminal with that same 10mm wrench or socket, whatever you are using. Loosen this mounting nut up until you can spin the terminal. And at this point, we're going to pick this one right up and off the battery and set it aside. Clearly quite a bit of corrosion here, so I'm going to have a lot of cleanup to do. At the bottom of the front of the battery, you'll see a 12mm bolt that holds down a little bracket that's called the battery hold down. We're going to break this free. Remove it the rest of the way. Pick it up and right off of there, as well as this little bracket. And now we can remove the battery. Hopefully yours has a handle that you can lift it up and off with. Otherwise, it's going to be quite difficult because it is heavy. Underneath the battery, you'll see the battery tray, of course, and this is held on with 4 12mm headed bolts. Let's remove all 4. We can't pull the tray out yet because on the top left corner as you're looking at it, there's a 10mm headed bolt that holds the air filter housing down on the tray. Once you loosen that up, remove it, and you can take the tray. We have some wiring attached to it right here. Gonna have to kind of move it around in a way in which we can unclip everything. Slide it out. There's another harness attached to it on the front. This one just clips on. So twist it, pull it, and you could also use a trim tool for this, just to unhook it. There it is. Set it aside. Let's remove the intake snorkel, and to do this, we're going to have to undo 2 clamps, 10mm head bolts on each, and that way we can pull it off of both ends. Just loosen these up. We also have a little hose in the middle with a hose clamp. So take some pliers, push that hose clamp off, and pull the hose off, and then take the whole thing out. Set this aside and out of our way. There are 2 more 10mm headed bolts on the air box to remove. One is up on the strut tower, and one is right down here near the lower radiator hose. Both need to come off. Now you can lift this up. It is connected to the air inlet pipe down at the bottom, so you'll have to move it around until it pops off. The computer is on the back of it. I'm not unplugging anything, I'm just moving it up and out of our way. Let's take out this bracket that sits on top of the engine mount. This is where the air filter housing got bolted on, but it'll create more clearance for us to work. It's just 2 10mm headed bolts. Remove both. And pull the bracket away. Let's unbolt the bracket that holds down this wiring harness. Use a 10mm socket and remove the bolt. With that set aside, we can move this harness around as needed. And then if we look a little bit further back, we'll see a couple more bolts, 12mm in size. They hold down the shifter cable, and we have to remove those because that bracket is actually in the way of our sensor. Lift this up and push it aside. We're not removing anything here. We just need to create enough space for us to work. And right there is our sensor. Once again, this is the input, not the output speed sensor, so looks like I also have to pop the rest of this harness off right back here on that retainer so I can twist this bracket out of the way enough without pulling on these wires. This retainer right here, if you take a little screwdriver, you can pry that tab out and just wiggle it off of this bracket. There we go. Now we have way more clearance. We can twist this bracket around. We can get to our bolt. We can get to our connector. Let's unplug a couple connectors just to get more clearance out of this harness. The neutral safety switch, or the range selector switch, whatever you want to call it. The plug for it has a locking tab on the left side as you're looking at it from the top. You're going to have to press on it. It is quite tough to press on, and it's not in an easy spot to reach. Wiggle it and pull it up at the same time. Then you can pull this off. And then we have our sensor connector right here. Unplug this. Now this harness can be pulled aside and out of our way. Use a 10mm socket, unbolt the bolt that holds down the sensor. At this point, before I pull this out, I'm going to take compressed air, blow the area out so that no debris that sits here will fall into the transmission as I take the sensor out. I cleaned off the area. I even sprayed some rust penetrant down there. Now I'm going to take pliers, very gently try to grab the sensor, twist it, and pull up. There is an O-ring that sits right on the base of it, and that's usually what makes it stuck. There it is. Take the new sensor, and before you slide it in, put a little bit of silicone paste or dielectric grease on the O-ring. You could also use transmission fluid or a drop of engine oil if that's what you have. This will help it slide in a lot better. Make sure it's bottomed out fully by hand. You want to feel it pop in and lock down. Otherwise, if you put the bolt on with it raised up slightly, the bolt actually can make it pull in at an angle and it can damage it. Start the bolt in. Snug it up. To tighten it, all you need to do is just give it at most 1/8 of a turn after it has bottomed out. Well, that's not even 1/8 and it's already tight. It's a very small bolt. You don't want to strip anything out or break it off. Let's plug in our harness, starting with the sensor that we just replaced. Make sure that clicks. And then plug in the neutral safety switch on the other end. Make sure that clicks. Let's bolt this bracket back on that holds the cables, or the wires I should say. Snug it up. Let's bolt on the shifter cable. Snug these bolts up. If you unclip the harness anywhere else, clip it back on to re-secure it. I had the retainer off of this bracket taken off, so clip it back on and put on this bracket that the air filter housing gets bolted onto. Start on both bolts and snug them up. Put the air box back down, line it up. It doesn't have anything to lock into position with, you just have to hold it while lining up the two mounting bolts on each side. Snug these up. You don't need to make them very tight. You don't want to break them. Just snug so it can hold this down. There we go. Let's put the inlet hose to the air box back in. Slide it down onto the throttle body. Make sure it's fully seated. And of course on the airbox side, make sure that's fully seated. Don't forget about the hose that comes off of the engine. Slide that all the way down. Let's get the hose clamp reattached or resecured on the end of the hose. And then tighten up the 2 clamps on each end. When you tighten these, be very careful not to over tighten them. All you need to do is squish them down a little bit until they start squishing the hose, and that's it. You want to stop right there. Otherwise you could easily over tighten them and break them or break the hose. That's it. As long as you can't spin this and pull it off, it's plenty tight. Do the same down here. Perfect. Let's reinstall the battery tray. When you slide it down, you want to make sure that you put it into the bracket that goes on this wiring harness. So right here, that tab needs to slide through the opening, just like so, and then place it down where it belongs, and of course lined up with all 4 mounting bolts. Speaking of, once you got all that lined up, start them in. All 4 bolts are the same, so it doesn't matter which one you put back where. I put a little bit of anti-seize on them. These tend to rust over time, and I want to protect them, keep them nice and clean. Now snug them up. Once they're all snugged up, let's resecure the airbox on that corner. Get that bolt down there, start it, and snug it. Once again, don't make these too tight. They're small. All they need to do is squish down on this rubber a little bit. That's all you need. Take it and drop it in. Center it up. Put the battery hold down back in. Make sure that the larger edge is facing towards the battery and facing upwards. Otherwise, this would be mounted upside down. Drop that bolt in. I like to clean up the threads and put anti-seize on it. These often rust. Start it by hand and let's snug it up. Just give it a little snug. It doesn't have to be extremely tight. All it really needs to do is prevent this battery from moving. Take the positive battery terminal, slide it right up and over the battery post. Make sure that when you install it, you press it all the way down. You want the battery post to protrude through the top of the terminal, otherwise it is not fully seated. And take that 10mm wrench, snug this up. Now you don't have to go until this stops spinning, that would be too tight. Just snug it and then try to turn it by hand. If you cannot twist this with just the force of your hand, that is plenty tight. If you can spin it, keep turning this to snug it down, but if you over tighten it, what happens is it stretches right here and then it won't clamp down nice and tight in the future. If yours had a cap, at this point you would cap it off. Mine is broken. Let's reconnect the negative battery terminal. Slide this on the battery all the way down and then tighten it up with that 10mm wrench. Snug it until you can't spin it by hand anymore. I can still spin it a little bit, so I'm gonna give it another crank, but don't go until you can't turn this mounting nut anymore. That would be too tight and it would stretch out these terminals. This is perfect right here, so battery is reconnected.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.